You're watching The Experience, Comic Culture and Sales, streaming live daily to Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter.
I don't really have anything to talk about on the cold opener today, except that I hate it when people forget to change the layouts back. So it's like this. But that's on JD. Because he's not here and I can say that. Yeah, I don't really have anything to talk about in the cold opener today. There were a lot of books, several of which made me fall asleep and drop my iPad on my face. So if my voice sounds more nasally than normal, it's because I broke my nose on my iPad. Or I didn't and I just have a cold. You figure it out. This is In Stores This Week, where we talk about new books that are in stores this week. And we'll be back in just a minute to talk about books that are in stores this week.
Gentlemen,
you know what I learned this week? Putting on the Ritz is now in the public domain. If you're blue and you don't know where to go to, why don't you go where fashion sits?
Okay, is
Putting on the Ritz.
What's in the public domain? The lyrics to the song or a certain recording?
The original song. It was released in 1927.
He wrote it in 1927, first published in 1929. It was registered as an unpublished song in 1960. So yeah, it would be okay. So the original Harry Richmond arrangement of Putting on the Ritz is in the public domain,
which means I can sing it on the air.
I'd have to look at the music because you were singing the taco version.
No, I was singing the Mel Brooks version,
which is the taco version, which may in fact be the original arrangement.
Yes.
But if we're going to get into this, we're going to get into this properly because copyright law is a pain in my backside and I have to know all about it.
But if I'm I could dramatically read the lyrics then?
If you're blue and you don't know where to go to, if you William Shatner it, you're good.
I could easily William Shatner it.
Right.
I could also Bob Dylan it.
So Putting on the Ritz is always associated in my brain with One Night in Bangkok.
Mm-hmm. Why?
Songs that I heard on the radio that were actually from musicals.
Oh, okay.
Like it's because One Night in Bangkok is from the musical Chess. Putting on the Ritz and
Put It on the Ritz.
Putting on the Ritz was in the musical Young Frankenstein. Like there's several songs like that were in musicals that live in my brain as 80s pop hits. And it was only later that I realized they were in musicals.
We had radio DJs out here, Kevin and Bean, and they had something they called the Wheel of Bad Ideas. And that was whenever they had a segment they didn't know what to fill it with, they would bring out this wheel and it had various things on it. And they would spin it and whatever it landed on is what they would do. And they would do strange stuff like Yam Baby, which was about a detective that was also a yam. There was something called What's in Doc's Butt, where they would decide what was in their traffic guy's butt. And it would just go on. And one of the things they had on there was What's Up with Murray Head. And it was on there forever, and it never got landed on. And they would read off the things, and we got What's Up with Murray Head. And one day, lo and behold, it hit What's Up with Murray Head. And they turned out they had his phone number. They called him up, and he was just sitting at home waiting for a pizza to be delivered. And he chatted with them for a little bit. But so that's always stuck in my head is What's Up with Murray Head. And of course, Murray Head, who led Chess and sang One Night in Bangkok, is the brother of Anthony Head from Buffy the Vampire Slayer, who also was a Broadway guy and was in Chess as well at one point.
Yeah, I always thought that Murray Head should show up in Buffy
That would have been awesome.
and just sing an awkward song
Mhm.
and then leave.
It would be the Moorhead version of Buffy.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry,
And then somewhere they could have a TV on the background of Bewitched, and there'd be Agnes Moorehead in the background.
Jeff Wedding, I'm hoping we're going to make that announcement of what we've been teasing Thursday on Dan's show. I'm just waiting on a couple of details to come through so I can give him the go-ahead.
Hopefully they'll tell me what the hell it is.
Those are one of the details.
Yes.
Permission to tell Dan what we're doing.
I mean, they've never started. I mean, never did before, so I don't know why they want to start now.
Right. So, it's going to. Maybe it'll be on. Yeah, we'll figure that out. Anyway. New books that are in stores this week. Or should we talk about Murray Head some more?
I'm always up for talking about Murray Head.
I'd much rather hear that, honestly. We're going to be grumpy old men this episode, right. I'm telling you.
Also,
I'll sing One Night in Bangkok.
No, so during the pandemic, one of the local theater companies here in town did chess because it's one of the few shows you could do in COVID protocol. Because there's never that many people on stage. You can stage it outside. And it was available with streaming rights. So they could put it up in a theater where everybody had passed a COVID test and not have any audience and then stream it.
Nice.
Yeah. So I was this close to auditioning to be in chess, but I didn't want to have to say One Night in Bangkok and the world's your oyster with a slightly accent where it sounds like Hoitspa. It's very interesting.
Yes, John. Grumpy J is coming.
All right. So this week we had more books than last week, but somehow still less books than last week. Because at least last week's books were books.
And we lost Sean somehow.
He had to work.
He's supposed to be like right there or right there somewhere.
Right. We just need to get Sean to not work Tuesdays.
By the way, when are we doing the Brady Bunch thing? Get all the people from the show or different shows to do like the Brady Bunch parody?
When I run out of better ideas.
So a month ago?
Oh.
All right.
You couldn't even come up with a second joke for your Zelda commercial.
Oh, no, I've got a list. I just haven't had time to do the voice work.
Because if you're going to go, okay, we'll stop, you should do more than one joke.
Right. No, that's the intent. But you also have to have time to do the voice work.
Hmm.
And I've not had time to do the voice work again because while reading books today, I fell asleep. That's how good some of these books are. So let's start. This is a book I like to call Sonia Two Ways, Red and Hell. As in, what the red hell did I read?
I liked the book. I thought it was a nice delving into Sonia's past that we haven't looked at much. When she had a family, when she was growing up, what happened to them, what honed her into the weapon that she is, the loss of her loved ones. There's definitely some weird mind stuff going on. We get an appearance of an old school villain from the days of Marvel. I mean, I actually kind of liked this one. It came around, and I'm Hell Sonia's not really growing on me yet, but I liked Red Sonia. Warwick was cool, and I'm really curious where this is going. And we all know there's some serious stuff wrong with Warwick, but I thought the art was good and the story was telling was good.
Yeah, just any book that starts off with a decapitation is like a win in my book.
Wait, do you mean Kyle from with the iPad hit him?
That's Broken Nose. But yeah, I mean, I really enjoyed this issue, and the fact that they kind of made it like, kind of like a horror story near the end. Because once I saw the house that's in there, I was like, that house doesn't look like it belongs in this era.
Right.
And then they go inside, and it really did get like kind of like a horror movie. And there was a time I was confused for just a little bit, and then I thought of it as part of it was kind of like a nightmare within a nightmare kind of scenario. But once I figured that out, I was fine. I thought this was a solid second issue, and once again, I can't believe, but Dynamite's one of the better books this week for me.
I liked the Red Sonja bit. I could do without the Hell Sonja bit. And that was the part that was frustrating to me, is that I really did like the idea of, let's do a Red Sonja origin story, but let's really take our time with it. Because nobody ever takes their time with it. But then to throw in this other bit, this other kind of Hell Sonja story, and to tie the two together, dragged the whole thing down for me. So what went from, like, I would say this was an A minus book otherwise, wound up being a C or C plus book. Just because it felt like maybe they'd be out here doing too much and could have either slowed down or just eliminated parts of the story that it didn't need. Ed, they created a universe that no one asked for to do it. However, some of the things that have come out of that universe have been amazing. So I'm glad no one asked and somebody had the idea.
They found them on Tinder.
Although, wouldn't Red Sonja be on Raya because that's where the celebrities go?
Never heard of it, which means I'm not a celebrity, I guess.
It's true. All right. Kamen Rider 01 number 2.
I spent a lot of the time thinking how funny it would be if the book was called Ramen Kiter, and that they turned into like a cup of ramen. It was a long day.
Wow.
I think this continued from the first issue. Brandon Easton's writing. I think he's trying very hard to have that feel of the shows and the manga and stuff, and I think he's doing a good job with it. But it's a niche type thing. If you are into these kind of stories, this is right up your alley. If you watch them and you go, why is all this happening? It's not going to be for you. So it's definitely the style of book that you would expect from this. I don't know, it's almost manga style. I'm not sure what the term would be if there's a collective term. But it's like Power Rangers, stuff like that. It's mech suit guys. And I think this one kind of followed suit. I even started to care about one of the characters in this, which was kind of weird. But the guy who now has a corporation, he's an ex-comedian. Like, all right, I get that. I feel him. I see where he's coming from. So, yeah, I actually liked it.
Yeah, I feel like this is a book that's not for you if you didn't enjoy Kamen Rider in any of its previous forms, right? I feel like, for me at least, I had to rely so heavily on what I already know to get into this book in the first place, that now that we're 2 issues in, if I didn't have that knowledge, I would just be more confused than I already was. Now, I could see what Dan was talking about, and I hadn't considered some of it, where it could start pulling you in by kind of giving you sort of ideas of who the characters are a little clearer. But I still feel like it's relying too much on a pre-fabricated knowledge base or a pre-existing knowledge base that I don't know that every comic book reader has.
I've never read any of these before, so I don't have that.
Yeah, I mean, you said it, right? You're starting to kind of understand who the characters are.
Yeah.
And you're even relating to them. It's getting there, but you're 2 issues in and you're getting there. I feel like a lot of people are going to be more confused than they were when they started.
Yeah, but it's better than what we got from Scott Snyder this week. Jeez.
We'll get there.
This is just a fun, ridiculous, corny, action-packed book. And after some of the books we read this week, I really needed this one. I like the fact that we're sticking with the same villain. This isn't one of those villain of the week kind of stories, kind of books. And I really did dig the story, and I knew nothing about this before we read that first issue. I thought the art was great, and I feel like this comic has a very good balance of seriousness and silly, because I still crack up over the calling out your move names and some of the over-the-top monologues that get done in it. Like, stuff like that is funny to me. I thought this was a pretty good second issue.
Yeah, and we should point out that Brandon Easton is really good at taking the theme of the show and making it work in the comic, because it's, like I said, it's a Power Rangers thing, and you get that feel from this. But he's also written Star Trek, and it feels like Star Trek episodes, and he's written like an Andre the Giant graphic novel, and it felt like a wrestling type thing. So Brandon's really good at picking up on what the source material is and making it work.
All right, I'm gonna go first on Assassin's Apprentice number 2. 1 out of 10, not for me. I can't read the dialect. That's not a fault of the book. It's a fault of me. I just can't read it. I don't understand it. For whatever reason, even though it's a dialect that if I heard it, I would understand it, I can't make the connection between reading it and having kind of a comprehension problem. And for me, that's a big deal. I can't comprehend it the way that you need to really fully understand this book. The thing I took away from this book is that the dog is super cute, and if I could mind meld with a dog, I would. That's kind of what I took away from this book. And again, it's no fault of the book or Jody Hauser or the person who wrote it. Was it Robin Hobb? It's just, for whatever reason, for me, it's like reading Greek.
See, it's funny, you said that, and as soon as you said that you can't get into the dialect, and I thought, wait, there's a dialect? I didn't even notice it. But as I'm reading this, and I'm like, okay, I'm not really sure where we're going. Okay, so he can communicate with the dogs. I don't get what's going on with this guy, but all right. I'm like, oh my God, it's John Wick. This is the origin story of a medieval John Wick. And that's when it clicked. It all makes sense at that point. Assassin's Apprentice, puppy. I may have spoiled what happens to the puppy, but by the end of the book, I'm going, kill that guy, kill him now. So I'm digging this book. My God, I'm being positive about 3 books in a row.
Ooh.
You guys continue. I'm gonna go get my temperature taken.
Yeah. This still feels like I would enjoy reading the books more. I don't know. It kind of feels like, and I know there's like a 1602 Marvel universe out there, but this really feels like reading a 1600s X-Men book, and this kid is finding out he's a mutant. With his power to push people away, like when he yells or gets mad. Near the end of it, though, you find out he's not the only one that has this power. And that was the most interesting part of the book to me was when you find that out. I highly disliked the ending of this book, as Dan talked about. I highly disliked it. I'm really hoping it's a fake out. Maybe they just took the puppy away from him. I'm really hoping that's what it is. But I don't know. It's maybe issue 3 will turn it around for me. But as it stands right now, it's to me it's the second novel we've had on this list. So,
all right. The Ones, number 3.
I have not been saying much nice about this series, other than I like Jacob Egger's art. I'm coming around on it now. Baby Satan, freaking awesome. Sport kiddo, just I get it. And now that I see there's some big master plan, they're not just a bunch of screw ups. All right, I want to see issue 4. I don't want this to go on. I want this to end at issue 4. I want to wrap this up. But you got me back, Brian. You brought me back around. I actually now want to see what happens. I like all the research the guy did, and suddenly the extra person that shows up, and yeah, it was all pretty cool. So I like I said, I've come back around on this one, where I was completely off the reservation with this one. Just nope, don't want it. Want nothing to do with it. Did Scott Snyder write this? I mean, it was not my thing. And then I'm back around now. Yeah, I know, John. 4 books in a row. It's getting really weird.
So the thing about The Ones to me was the first issue seems to have been the weakest issue. And everything keeps growing and building and improving every issue, which, you know, for Bendis's recent track record has not always been the case. And I'm continuing to love this book for its eccentricity and its elaboration, I guess. It keeps getting a little weirder and a little stranger and a little more elaborate, and I'm in. By the way, did anybody else read Satan's voice as like sort of high-pitched Elvis?
yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I was hearing Patton Oswalt.
Also not wrong.
Sport. I'm going to bring Sport back. Yeah, I like this one. Kid Satan was the funniest part to me. I had that in my notes. There was a couple of issues that I had, and I think maybe it's just the digital issue, or they did this in the book, but I didn't like the sideways panels.
Yeah.
I was sitting here trying to read them like this because I really wanted to read them, but
I tried to turn my monitor; it didn't work.
Yeah,
See, that's the benefit to reading on your iPad, right? Is I can set it. I lock the orientation, so then for those I just have to go.
But
then I dropped it on my face. It was a whole thing.
This will be one of those that, once again, I think once it comes out in trade format, that's how I'll really enjoy it, because I can just read it straight through. But the issues that I've read, because I think I missed out on the first one, the issues that I've read, I've liked them. So I thought this was a good book.
All right. Know Your Station, number 2. This was the first book for me this week that I liked issue 1, and I went, well, crap. I don't think that it's got the legs to keep going.
No.
This book made very little sense. It definitely was one of the books that caused me to pass out. And, you know, bubble or bottle episode, space murder in space. It's been done, and it's been done better. And I want to like this book because it seems like a unique concept. There was one big twist in it that, all right, I see you, but it feels like it's missing something important.
To me, it feels like the writer is, he or she, I don't remember who the writer
Sarah
was.
Gailey is her name.
Yeah. Is trying to do too much. It's like, okay, we're in a sci-fi environment, so things are different. And we've got a murder on board, and we've got all the political stuff going on, and she's fighting an addiction. It's like, why do we need all of that? Because you're trying to keep up with all of those things, and it's like this overflow of information that you're trying to sort out. And it's almost like you need one of those conspiracy theories whiteboards with the red strings and stuff just to try to figure out who all the people are and what they're doing. And nobody stands out enough to really make you care about them. You know, I mean, somebody came in this issue, and I don't know if we met them last issue or where they came from. And I don't know who. We see a corpse at the end of the thing, and I don't know who that's supposed to be. And
You see two.
Okay, the two. And I have a guess who that is, but I'm not 100% certain. And this one didn't click for me the first issue. I know you guys were a little more excited about it. But again, I think it's overly complicated. You're losing the actual murder mystery in all of the superfluous stuff to make it feel like a sci-fi book. You don't need the drug story and the whole political thing and all the sci-fi tech and the murder mystery. Just calm it down a little.
Well, at the risk of sounding like a psychopath, not enough murder in this one for me. There were parts of this I was confused just as much as the main character is. Like, so I'm still sticking with the AI did it, because the AI is the new butler for making these stories now. But she's having hallucinations, and I don't know what's real and what's not. She asked one of the characters like 6 different times, "Hey, are you really here in the room with me right now?" And I'm like, was the character in the room with her? What's going on? Like, we're getting a mystery, but the mystery is, how many more issues can y'all make this? That's the mystery to me, because this one, we get to the end, the last page, you see the bodies hanging, and I'm like, I wish they would have started that at the beginning of the book.
Yeah,
So.
That's something that you just said that made a whole lot of sense to me. The whole, are you in the room with me? How are you here? Are you actually here? The only way this book redeems itself for me at this point is if it's doing that to make you question your own reading, right? If it's doing that to throw you off balance, to say that person was never actually there, that whole thing was a hallucination. So now you're reading the hallucinations the person's actually having to throw you further off the scent. Like, it could be that it's just they're intentionally confusing you, which would be a good thing to do. Which would help this book, I think. So, all right. Before we go on to our next book, I want to remind you guys of a couple things. If you head over to theexplive.com, TheExplive.com, you can click on merch, and you can buy some of our EXP merch. The Rex Cap and Recap Rex shirts should be available tomorrow by the time the Comic Collectibles show goes live. We have our New Year, New Comics shirt. Going away tomorrow is our What's Up the Internet shirt. We're gonna start cycling these things through a little bit faster to give you guys some more options in terms of t-shirts. But when you do that, guys, just remember you're helping us to pay our bills and keep Jay employed, things like that. So, make sure you go over and do that. And then one other thing, if you would like, head over to fjcconline.com. Check out the new Fat Jack's website and buy some stuff from their store. Dan, tomorrow on the Dan Wickline show, you're going to have Luna Knight.
I am.
Talk about that.
We're going to talk about miniature painting and building for Warhammer 40K. I am continuing my journey to build my own army and play a game. And where we had Gabe the first time to talk about picking your army, we have Luna coming in to talk about actually building the models and the basics of painting. We're going to probably have her back also to do a more advanced class as well. But as I showed during my thing, I can paint some miniatures. I did this guy, but I wanted to have someone come in who's really good at it. And she has her own Twitch channel and does painting and stuff on there. So this is what she does for a living-ish hobby?
Hobbyish living. Yeah,
hobbyish living. So, but yeah, I've been digging deep into Warhammer, and this is the next adventure along my journey. So,
interesting fun fact about Luna. She and her husband, fiance, boyfriend, I'm not sure exactly what their relationship status is, and I were in a incredibly odd production of The Odd Couple together. She played one of the British ladies in The Odd Couple. Her guy played Oscar, and I played one of the poker players in an almost completely improvised version of The Odd Couple. Mainly because none of us bothered to learn our lines. So known them for a long time. They're good people. I'm excited to have her on the air to get her, for you to talk to her. I love watching her streams. Jay, what do you have going on? Anything you want to talk about?
Well, I do want to talk about how pretty that microphone is. Your microphone just keeps catching my eye every time. Jeez. Not much. We had I had a surprise Garrett Patreon come in the other day. I had a video of that up there on the Triangle of Truth channel. Got some reviews coming up.
What is the topic for Space Cadets this week?
Oh, my goodness. They're still in the holiday spirit. So there's some talk about how Jenna really doesn't like Galveston, but she likes Galveston. There's some Dickens on the Strand talk. There's pick of the week, of course. It just there's sometimes they talk about so much stuff, such random stuff that I can't keep up with it. I just hit the button and let them go.
I want to know how Galveston factors into the holidays, but I have to watch the show to figure that out.
Yeah.
All right. Coming back, we have Crashing number 5.
It's a good name for this book.
The last issue in the series.
Oh, finally. I really liked this story in the beginning. And as it's crawling over the finish line. And I'm not even sure why it became an action ending, because it's never been an action series. But we get to an action ending and it doesn't make a lot of sense. And then we have the aftermath. That's just, I wanted to read it because we're 5 issues in. This is the 5th issue. I wanted to finish the story, but it really felt like it was done last week or last time. I'm surprised there was a 5th issue. So maybe this as a trade, it would work better. You get through the whole thing at once. I don't know. But it kind of lost it in the middle, and I don't think it necessarily brought it back around at the end.
Yeah, like I thought it started off strong, but then it just continuously drove the main character to rock bottom. And then jackhammered her to hell once she got there. And then, oh, hell's got a basement. Let's take her there. Like, consistently, just even the happy ending at the end wasn't really that happy. I mean, it was just, and it just wasn't enough for me. I was hoping that we were going to get some, some surprise. Hey, one of them actually has powers. Or something like that. But I don't know. It just seemed like the more we went through it, it was just, hey, we're just going to beat this character down and not let her have a win at all. So
yeah, there was, for something that was built as a redemption story, there was no real redemption. Except that there was, but you don't have any time to live with it. No. Like, it's, okay, we've beat this character down to the final pulp we want to beat her down to. Here's where we're going to start to build her up. Dinner's ready. And it's like everybody went home. It felt like an incomplete story that they just slapped an ending on.
Yeah.
Right? It's like it's like at the end of a Hallmark movie where they've spent the whole movie setting up that the blonde lady is going to fall in love with the obviously too handsome to be where they're at dude. And they spend this whole movie building it up. And then in the last 5 minutes, it's, okay, they're getting married and having 6 kids. End of movie. Bye.
It's the frog storm from Magnolia. We need an ending quick. To hell with it. They get rain frogs.
Yes.
By the way, Jay, I'm sorry I laughed inappropriately during your review, but you said jackhammer her to hell and then happy ending. I'm like, are we reviewing the AVN Awards?
I know, phrasing. I got to be more careful with that. Damn his old dirty mind.
All right. Next up. I think we all have the same review of this book.
Why?
Stop putting people in Godzilla books.
Yes. Dear IDW, we're not reading these books for the people. We want the kaiju. If you gave us 22 pages of kaiju fighting with no explanation of why they were there or even dialogue, we would still buy the book and be happier with it. Stop trying to put interesting people in the book because they're not interesting.
Right. And if you're going to put interesting people in a book, maybe put them in a book with interesting kaiju. Like, these are the 2 kaiju in the Godzilla universe, Rodan and Ibira, that I care least about.
I hadn't even heard of Ibira. I thought that was like a type of burrito.
I only know it from my years of selling anime and manga. Like, it's one of those things. It's like, oh, you mean the thing that's 8th on the list behind the 3 different versions of Godzuki that I prefer ahead of it. Like, this is just bad. They're bad kaiju to begin with. And then you take people in it and try to make it, oh, the people are going to carry the story. No, they're not. Unless their lips move seemingly independently of the words, I'm not interested in people in a kaiju movie or kaiju book.
Lisa's son is a huge, besides of Jurassic Park, he collects Godzilla figures. And every time I would go over there, he would show me the latest ones, and he showed me all his toys for over the years and stuff. I've never heard of Ibira. I've never seen an Ibira figure. Never even heard of the guy.
Right.
Good.
Yeah. Kaiju and stasis, what could go wrong with that? These books are all so cookie cutter. You know, we spend way too much time with people. Look, I don't watch old Westerns to watch people farm the whole time. I watch them because eventually we're going to have gunfights. We're going to have action. They're not going to spend the whole movie with a certain family on a farm unless that's what the movie's about, of course. But I'm talking like Tombstone and things like that. I don't watch those to watch other people do something random. I don't watch a monster movie to watch people unless those people are being eaten. Again, sound like a psychopath, but
I do have one question is, if you're writing a book about two giant kaijus that are in stasis in space, and there's a giant elevator, a cosmic elevator or whatever it is, that's carrying you from the ground to this satellite, which, or first thing, I don't even understand the physics of that, because the satellite would be going around, and yeah. My question though is, how do you not make some kind of commentary about what music is playing on the frickin' elevator?
It's the music version of the giant purple people eater, Dan.
That would work. It's a monster from a
the music version of Monster Mash.
Yeah. No, there's the one band that does a song Monster, but feel like a monster.
Oh, Skillet?
Skillet.
Yeah, Skillet. Thank you.
I don't know that you can write a good I don't know that you can write a good Godzilla book these days. I just don't think it's possible.
I can. IDW, call me.
I'd read that.
All right.
Because I wouldn't put any people in it.
Good.
I feel like this next book, before we move on to it, we're gonna caveat this book a little bit.
Okay.
So we can talk about this next book for a while. But the reason I'm going to caveat is that it is a digital first product. At current, it is only available through Comixology Press. It is not available in local comic book shops. If it does become available in local comic book shops, I have a suggestion for Dark Horse. Don't put it out as single issues. Put it out as one big book. And don't market it as a comic book. So just know that this is a digital first product. You can only get it on Comixology. And so it can't necessarily be judged against regular comic books because they don't have to follow the rules because Comixology. This is Book of Evil #2. And what's interesting about this book is that I couldn't find the Book of Evil #2 cover anywhere on the internet. So I just used the Book of Evil #1 cover, which ironically is the same as the Book of Evil #2 cover, just with a different color.
Yeah, I completely forgot that we read novel 1 months ago.
I'm going to throw my review out there real quick just because it's going to be really short.
Mm-hmm.
I got 3 pages in and left. I can't do this book. No.
Yeah.
I got nothing, no time for this book. So I can't say good or bad about it. I can't read it.
And trust me, I completely understand that because this is honestly, okay. This feels like it's part 2 in an actual novel. How they got away with calling this a comic, because they got a couple of pictures every once in a while. And I mean, they're not, if you went into a store and saw this and you opened it up, you'd be like, am I in the wrong section? I got halfway through it and I had to take a break. And when I came back to it, I finished it off and I was like, the most interesting part of this book for me was the very last page. Again, I read 40 some odd pages to get one page where I was like, oh, what's this? Now I want to know just this part. But this is one of those, I'm glad I get to read it for free. Because I would take this back. Because it's a book, it's not a comic. They should just make this a book. Take the pictures out and just make it a book.
And use consistent, normal font.
Yeah.
So I'm going to be, I said this to Jay and Dan, and I've said to several other people, this is the best story of the week, but it's the worst book of the week. This is in my opinion, it's a truly unique story. I've not read a story like this since maybe the first time I read like Village of the Damned or something like that, where it's this kind of unique take on the way the world works in this time. But it's not a comic book. It's a novel. And the way they're getting away with calling it a comic book is by having some spot sketches by Jock and this unique typeface for the lettering. I don't mind the typeface. Doesn't bother me that much. I don't mind the spot illustrations. Don't bother me that much. What I mind is that there are page after page with no spot illustrations, with just this odd font that just pour details on you. And we're supposed to be reading this guy's journal. Okay, I get that. But it doesn't really feel like a journal entry. It feels like a voiceover for a movie. And so I think this would be better as a novel with spot illustrations. I think this would be better as some sort of original trade paperback or original hardcover as opposed to single issues. I think it would be better as a movie or television show as opposed to a book. There was a review on the website that I used to get the covers. It says, it's not a comic book. It's an adult picture book. I don't know that that's even right. I am fascinated by the story and I want to finish the story, but I'm not interested in finishing the story in this format. I would just as soon wait until every issue is out, print it off and put it in a 3-ring binder and read it that way. You know, the same way that you would get it if it was a trade or a hardcover or something. Scott Snyder's writing something interesting, but it's not a comic book.
Yeah, you know how the book of the Book of Slaughter had the codex in it? This book needs a codex to me.
That's fair.
JD's called it. It is called the Book of Evil.
Yeah, I mean,
comic of evil.
Yeah, true.
It's true. I mean, it does feel like a book, and it doesn't feel so much like a comic, and that's what's frustrating about it. Because I love Jock's art, but this is not a great example of it. All right, last up, Robin Hood Dagon. I thought you misspelled it, Dan. I thought it was supposed to be Robin Hood Dragon, and I got all excited. Like when I read the list in when you sent us the list, I'm like, oh man, Robin Hood with a dragon. Nope.
This is definitely Dagon from the Elder Gods and the mythos, the Lovecraftian mythos, and Zenoscope continues to push their way into the world of Lovecraft, and this just feels like such a misfire to me. The more and more they're going down, because you know they're really just pulling the creatures and not even the things that make Lovecraft interesting. You know, they're not picking the writing style or anything like that. They're just picking the creatures and the terminologies and stuff, and it's just not working for me, you know. And then they introduce a character just kind of out of the blue. We meet him in the regular form earlier in another issue, and then suddenly he's a superhero or powered, and it's like, really? We're doing that now? Just, yep, you're a superhero. I don't know. It doesn't feel like Zenoscope anymore. It doesn't feel like what they were good at. Even Robin Hood, which always kind of stood out on its own, it doesn't feel like it's what their niche was. So, yep. But they keep going. So you have to appreciate their determination.
Yeah. Dan put this book on there because he knew I'd love it. Because, hey, fish monsters are back. Yeah. Golly. Reboot it. Reboot Zenescope. Reboot the whole thing. Get rid of this we're trying to be a superhero universe thing that they're doing. Just go back. That might make me sound like the old guy who doesn't want things to change, but the Grimm fairy tale stuff was so much better when they just took fairy tales. I don't care about the interconnected universe of Zenescope. I really do. I really want to like these books, but I don't. And again, it's one of those. So we have this new character that we met on the subway with the Wendigos. I think that's the book that they were in.
Yeah.
So he's good with a bow. You have Robin. Robin's good with a bow. Then you have the character of Death, and she has a scythe. And then you have this other character, and she has a staff. So when they're all fighting together, it's the same. It feels like the same characters. Like, man. Yeah, see, Ed Weird's got the right idea there.
Don't start with me, Ed Weird.
I mean, it's just, and then the end. I'm like, why? What's the point of that? You already had the fish people. Just leave it the fish people. You didn't need that shot at the end. I miss old Zenescope, man.
So John has a question. Do Zenescope books sell well? And I don't know if you guys have thoughts on this, but I can tell you that they have in the past, John, that I had always had good success selling Zenescope books. But the thing for me as a retailer that was the selling point for the Zenescope books were that the covers were fun to look at and that the stories inside were usually pretty good, were usually very good with solid art. Right? But they were different. The cover would sell as cheesecake or as, like window dressing, but the inside of the books were really good. It feels like more recently you've seen the opposite happen, where the outside covers are really great and the inside art is just kind of meh, and the story is also just kind of meh. And I think that's probably hurting them long term. But I think there's probably still a lot of people who buy them just for the covers.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure how the physics on that cover works.
Correct.
That's just, did she leap off and strike that pose before she plummets to her death?
Maybe there's wires we can't see.
Is she resting very delicately on the edge, and if a good breeze comes by or a pigeon, she'll fall?
But yeah, she would be, the torch itself is much bigger than she would be. So she has to be much closer, force perspective wise, to us than she is, so she can't actually be sitting on the railing.
Is she a giant now, maybe?
That's coming next.
Is Jolly Green Red Robin Hood? Or Jolly Green Right? Yeah.
The one white eye lets her fly.
And why is the torch a different color than the statue? It's like they cleaned the brass up on the torch, but they haven't got to the rest of the statue yet?
I just wanted to say something to John real fast. John, I would still tell you, man, if you've liked Grimm in the past, you might still like this one. This is just, my opinion on it. I'm coming from the just reading the Grimm fairy tales. I think they had Evil Heroes, I thought was pretty good. There's No Guts, or All Guts, No Glory is really good. And Goatman and what is it?
Bunnyman.
Yeah, there you go. That one's really good. For some reason, this part of the universe, I personally just can't get into.
It feels to me like they did their original Grimm fairy tales run, and that was horror and O. Henry type stories, one shots that just had a narrator. And then they made this cohesive universe and started introducing these other characters and tied them all together into this superhero style universe. And that was kind of 2.0. And then they decided, well, we kind of lost our horror roots, so let's get that back, but we want to keep our superhero roots or superheroes. So what we'll do is we'll just start bringing Lovecraftian horror into the superhero characters, and it just is not merging well because it feels really forced.
Yeah, if you want to read some of the best Zenescope stuff, go back and read. What was it? You worked on it, Dan, when you were doing Sinbad. The
Dream Eater Saga.
They had the Dream Eater Saga. Yeah. Go back and read that. That's some of the best Zenescope work ever done. All right, so we got to get out of here because Jay has to go do Minute to Skim It. But I want to remind you guys, head over to Comic Shop Locator. They have been a sponsor of our show since day one. ComicShopLocator.com. Type in the area code where you are, and it will tell you where comic shops are nearby to you. I will be doing some traveling in the coming weeks, and I'm already plotting out my comic shop visits. You should do the same when you go anywhere. Or if you're just looking for some place to go pick up books in your town. I had an incident a couple weeks ago where I wanted a book and my local comic shop forgot to order it. So I had to go on there and find other shops in town to go buy it from. Simple as that. ComicShopLocator.com. We will see everybody for the Dan Wickline show tomorrow. For Space Cadets later in the week, I'll be back with Nick for the art show because I got art on my wall now. And we will see everybody later on this week. Thanks for tuning in.